Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Cesar G. Hernandez. I'm the program director for MileOne here in Laredo. I want to welcome everybody to our day two of the PP program overview and updates for 2020 and 2021. Yesterday, we had a great presentation where Mr. Brown discussed just an overview of the Paycheck Protection Program, some of the details behind it in terms of forgiveness and what you can use your money for. We talked a little bit about the first draw and the second draw. So if you were not able to attend yesterday's presentation, you can watch it on our Facebook page, and we will be sending out reminder emails in case you missed it. For today, once again, I'd like to introduce Mr. Halbert Brown and Ms. Rosana Gomez from the Minority Business Development Agency COVID-19 Resilience Center out of UTSA in San Antonio. We have developed a wonderful partnership of resources and tools that we've been able to share together. And this just gives MileOne an opportunity to be able to provide more information to our local small business community. And so I just want to pass it on over to Rosana. She's going to talk a little bit about the MBDA, and then Mr. Brown will take over. We are going to do a deep dive of the Paycheck Protection Program application. So things might get a little technical. So please, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in our chat box or in our Q&A portion. Thank you once again for joining us. Ms. Rosana, take it away.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you for being in this second part of our PPP series. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate that. For those that don't know me, I'm Roxana Gomez. I work for the MBDA COVID-19 Business Resilience Center. I'm the Senior Business Development Specialist. I just want to share with you today that we are just they had different focus, but at the same time, we have the same focus talking about the MBDA in general. We are very focused in helping businesses that are part of minorities or any type of business that are struggling because the COVID or the pandemic. I just want to share that we have the MBDA Export Center, where they are mainly focused to help businesses that they want to export and make some international trade in Central and South America. We have the manufacturing center that they help any business that is probably interested in working in the manufacturing industry. And we have the business in general, and now the COVID-19 Business Resilience Center. I'm just trying to give you this information today because it's very surprising. And we ask if some people know, we ask the question, do you know about the MBDA? People always say the same. They say, unfortunately, they say, no, we don't know anything about the MBDA. They don't even know the stand for the MBDA, that is actually Minority Business Development Agency. So our mission this year is to trying to let people know about our center. And that's why we are doing this type of collaborations with this type of partnerships, especially with MileOne, an incubator center that is in Laredo, Texas. And honestly, it has been a very good partnership. We have been working since last year, and it has been very great. And that's why we are putting this type of webinars together. Something that I want to highlight before I pass the microphone, because I don't want to talk a lot, is we are under the funds of the US Department of Commerce. So in other words, this program, especially our program, the COVID-19 Business Resilience Center, is for free. So if you are looking any type of assistance, any type of mentoring, advising in access to capital, business plans, any other type of needs that you are looking for, we are here to help you. And the good thing is everything is for free. So you need to take advantage of this. We just need to, you just need to reach out to us. If we don't know something in a specific, we're trying to look that information for you and that type of help. So now I'm going to pass the microphone to my friend Hal, and I hope that you enjoy this second part of the PPP series.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Roxana. It's always a pleasure to work with you as well. And Luis and Cesar, thank you guys very much for inviting us to be a part of the Laredo area in general. We hope whenever they lift this COVID travel ban that we have right now, that we can come down there and you guys can entertain us as we do some things together down there in person once all this is settled. we really look forward to it. And I really want to appreciate everybody for being here today. Thank you guys for joining. I don't know if you were here yesterday, but I'm going to do a very quick overview of some of the things we talked about yesterday, because there's no way I could go through all of it, because we do have a pretty powerful, pretty information-packed presentation for you today. And as soon as I get my program up and running here, there we go. The Paycheck Protection Program. This is our 2021 workshop, part 2. And we're talking about applying for the PPP loan and PPP loan forgiveness. We're going to talk about a variety of things today. And whenever you put a presentation together like this, I have to research all kinds of things. Needless to say, I've been very busy the last few weeks trying to pull together a bunch of information from all kinds of sites. Some of the resources I can share with you where I'm getting my information. Of course, I go to the Small Business Administration website at sba.gov. That's one of the first places you should go when it comes to anything PPP related. You can go www.sba.gov/PPP, and that opens up a world of information to you. I also consulted the Federal Register. There's in more detailed guidance in there based on the law that they've written for this program. There's frequently asked questions for each component of the PPP process, when it comes to the application process, when it comes to loan forgiveness, as it relates to the 3 different parts of applications and loan forgiveness. And then the second draw, there's also frequently asked questions there for the second draw and things that you might go through there. I consulted the SBA's presentation that they gave a couple days ago on second draw error codes. There's some information out there where professionals in the media are putting pressure on the SBA to try to get rid of all these problems that they're having in the system. Well, most people don't know we're having a bunch of problems unless you've applied for the loans and you know that there's some challenges going on. You see some error codes. So we'll talk about some of those error codes today. And we'll also talk about how to calculate PPP. And that article I consulted was from a bank. Banks pressure the the Department of the Treasury and SBA. And there's a guy named Zachary Wombrot that did the article. And you read it, it's pretty good, but we're going to address some of those issues today. So if you've applied and have run into some problems, I always say be patient. And the other thing I always throw out there when I do these type presentations is you don't have to go it alone when you do these type applications and processes for forgiveness and appeals and all of that stuff. Consult your local professionals that help counsel, the business advisors in your area, whether it be MileOne and their incubator center there, whether it be a small business development agencies or SBA district office or local office that you might have in your area. Consult these people, SCORE, Service Corps retired executives, MBDA, if you know, we're here to help you as well. And I always say consult all of us. Some of us have more experience and have done more research in certain areas than others. So consult all of us. And so I'll get into this presentation now. Yesterday was a very quick presentation, I guess about 40 minutes or so. This one might go a little bit longer. And just so you know, there's Miss Roxana, the movie star, because we had our staff meeting and she took over the staff meeting today. And they want to put her out in Hollywood because of all the things that she's doing out here. So we really appreciate her. She's got an agent already in the center. But you'll have in the presentation some of the information about her and what qualifies her to do this job. And same thing with me, you'll have some information on there about my qualifications to do this job as well. I am the project manager for the COVID-19 Business Resilience Center. Roxanne and I stood this program up in July, and we have not stopped since. And it's been a pleasure getting to know everybody and all the collaborating teams that we've met with. It's especially good working with Cesar. He's really been a joy. This is a little bit of disclaimer that I have to do because I am going to be providing some technical information here. But when I provide this technical information based on the U.S. Treasury regulations, Circular 230, I cannot give you legal advice. I'm not an attorney and I'm not a CPA. I'm a person with working on a doctorate in business administration, and I have a master's of business administration. I've run businesses myself and business consultation for 10 years now. But this is not to be used to say, oh yeah, Mr. Brown told me that I can do this and I'm going to get approved for everything. This is not what that is. I'm giving you information and I'm going to be giving you advice on where to go for other information, amplifying information. But it's up to you to consult either an attorney or, when it needed, a CPA and a bankers. The lenders are your friends in this whole process. So make sure you get close to some lenders and help them walk you through this process. But we will walk through some of it today, just to point out a few things here and there, because I think it's important if people at least see it, they'll know what to expect when they decide to go. Today's session, what we're going to include is, I'm going to introduce you to the basic PPP application. We're going to talk about a little bit about the forgiveness process, and I'll tell you where to go to seek information on appeals. That's quite a detailed process that we couldn't get it in. I couldn't fit it into this presentation. I couldn't fit the whole process into it, but I can give you where to go. Now, like as I said, we strongly recommend that you seek professional assistance when filling out the forgiveness applications, because there's multiple forms and you need to consult with your lender to see which one fits best for the type of forgiveness you're seeking. We're going to talk about the application error codes. It's not all inclusive, but we're going to cover a few of them that probably are more common than others. And then, of course, you can find more info at sba.gov. And I said before, make sure you use your community resources. Yesterday, we talked about the different things when it comes to PPP. There are two different draws you can do. If you haven't received PPP in the year 2020, well, you can still apply for a first draw in 2021, and you'll use the SBA form 2483. You can go 8 or 24 weeks. Preferably, if I were you, I'd go to 24 weeks because it gives you a little more money stretched out, and make sure your people are funded so that they can work and get paid during this difficult process that we're in. And the second draw, if you've received a second draw, even if you haven't been given the forgiveness on it yet, you still can apply for a second draw if you've already got your first draw. You can apply for the second draw, and that's on the form 2483-SD, and for second draw, okay? And the same thing, you make sure you take care of all the periods covered, and there's going to be documentation needed in both of them. Sit down with your lender and they can tell you what documentation they need. And truth be told, it depends on the type of business you are that will determine what type of documentation you need. As I got detailed into this stuff when I'm pulling it together, none of them are the same. The lenders don't ask for the same thing. If you're an LLC, you'll probably have to put together different information than a sole proprietor. If you're a corporation, you have to put together different information than an LLC. It's just, so you have to dive deep into the regulations and dive deep into the process and consult the professionals to sit down with you to go through this to make sure that you're getting the right information. We were asked a question yesterday, and I wouldn't quit until I found the answer. One of the questions, and we've seen it quite a few times on different programs that I've been on. I'm self-employed and have no employees. Am I qualified to apply for a PPP loan? Well, the short answer is yes. And I even said yesterday, you can apply for it. Don't know if you're going to get it, because they really want you to have employees and they want you to have a payroll. But if you collect your IRS form, here's the steps to do it. This will determine if you're a sole proprietor, whether you can get it or not. You get your IRS form 1040 Schedule C from 2019, or maybe even 2020 now, and you look at line 31. If line 31 is a 0 or a negative number, meaning you lost, then you're not going to be approved for a loan. So if you're confused on that, it's really just your tax form. You're just looking at your tax form, the Schedule C, and you're just looking to see if you made a profit. If you made a profit, then you probably can put it in. So what you're going to do is, just like always, calculate your monthly averages. If it's more than $100,000, you need to bring it down to $100,000 and then put the document in. Multiply your monthly average times 2.5. If you're in code 72, which is accommodations or food service, then it's going to be multiplied by 3.5, and then submit all your outstanding information on the EIDL. So if you have a little bit more with EIDL, you have to add that amount to it. And then the other part of EIDL, when you got the draw, the $10,000, some people got up to $10,000 as an initial draw. That's no longer included, so you don't write down your loan amount based on that 10,000 or 5,000, if 2,000, whatever you may have gotten. But so the general answer is, if you're self-employed, you can apply. As a sole proprietor, you can apply. On the actual document itself, it does have a block for sole proprietor, but it says qualifying sole proprietors also. So you have to look at that. But so I wanted to make sure to get that answer out there in case you were on the call yesterday, and we did have a discussion about it. And I just wanted to make sure to clarify it a little bit more. And that's just to show also, when you ask us a question, if we can't find the answer, if we don't have the answer right there, we'll try to find the answer for you. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just want to now that you clarify this question that Jackie asked yesterday in Spanish, so I'm going to tell her, Jackie, buenos días. Tú estuviste preguntando ayer si siendo tú la empleada, la única empleada de tu negocio, la que hace todo, la que rueda todo el negocio como tal, si podía aplicar. Hal ahorita está haciendo la aclaración de que sí puedes aplicar y sí puedes ser, como quien dice, elegible para que te den el préstamo. Solo quería que lo supieras.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, overview of the application process. As I said, there are some system errors, even are some new errors. There were some errors last year, and the technical errors last year, the technicians that work on their platforms put in a whole new interface that took care of those issues that they had last year. Then they launched the 2021 program. And then all of a sudden people started applying over the last couple of weeks, and they're finding out that there's some issues that they didn't think might happen. And oh, well, here we go again with some more issues. Just like with any big program though, folks, when they put a program in place, this amount, this big, to try to get people to money right now, but any other thing, healthcare, whatever it might be, it's not going to be perfect when they first implement the program. We as the consumer, or we as the business owner, we have to be a little patient and let them iron out the little kinks that might be in the system when they come about, and not go to what we call general quarters. Don't get so angry about it that you just walk away. Be patient, let them work on the remedies to correct the deficiencies that might be in the system. They'll get it corrected. It might take them a little time, but they'll get it corrected. So some of the ones that were in that article I read, and some of the presentation that I saw with SBA, some of the ones they talked about were second draws. They're going to receive an error message saying that they haven't satisfied the approval process for their the forgiveness yet. Oh, well, that doesn't supposed to be, that's not a part of it. You don't have to have forgiveness of the first draw to get the second draw. So that's a problem. That's a code that you might see. You might see the banks are not allowed to do the second draw. Then if that code's in there, well, they're working on it. They'll get it fixed. Miraculously, today's supposed to be the day that a lot of this stuff flips the switch and is taken care of. We'll see going forward, but that's just some of the stuff that's out there. And we'll talk about more in detail later on in the presentation. I'll show you some of those codes that you might see. Now I'll get right into the application. If you've never applied for PPP, this is the basic form, the form 2483. And then there's, like I told you, for the second draw, there's a 2483-SD. When you look at the document, of course, I always tell people, fill in every block that's there. Even if you have to put an N/A for not applicable to me, I always say fill out every block that's on the document. That way somebody doesn't have to come back to you later on and say, hey, but you didn't fill out line 32, so it's gonna hold you up. I need you to take the document back and do that and then upload it again. We don't want to do that. So when you sit down with this application, it looks like a simple application, to be honest with you. Just fill out every block that you can. If you're a sole proprietor, make sure you check that block. Partnership, check that block. C Corp, check that block. S Corp, LLC, whatever it might be. And as you can see, sole proprietors can do it, and eligible self-employed individuals. That's the caveat. And you have to consult your tax forms from 2019 or 2020 to determine if you're eligible. If you made a profit, most likely you're eligible. And if you, I always say they want you to have at least one employee, but if you don't, select the eligible self-employed individual and supply whatever documentation the lender tells you to supply to them. You're going to make sure to put your business name in there. And on that left side there, you need to put the legal name as you apply for whenever you put your taxes in. What's the legal name you use for your business? And then if you have a DBA, over on the right side up there in the bigger block, you can put DBA, doing business as, like that. So if I was Brown Incorporated, if I was Brown and Brown LLC, that's my business name. But I'm doing business as Brown's Trucking Service, that's what would go in the DBA block, Brown's Trucking Service. And then you got to have your address. They're going to be looking for your business tax identification number or your EIN if you're a corporation or LLC, or if you're a sole proprietor or self-employed or independent contractor. They're probably going to be looking for your social security number. And then the basic information, your primary contact, phone number, email addresses, and things like that have to be in there. And as you can see in the document, there's a place for your average monthly payroll. And then you just do the math, multiply it by 2.5, put out what the number might be. And then, oh, by the way, I have 13 employees. And that's how you're going to come up with your formula for how much money you're applying for right then. And then they ask you, what are you going to use the money to do? Well, we're going to use this money for payroll. I also want to pay my lease, or if I have a mortgage, I want to pay my mortgage for my company. And I have utilities every month that I need to get paid. And if there's some other details, put other, and you're going to have to explain it by putting together an addendum to explain all the things, what other monies that you want to spend. And I say, what's purpose along, select all that will apply to you. And if there is an other, explain it in great detail so they don't have to come back to you, which will hold your application up. Okay. Then you go down to the ownership block, and you must list anybody that has at least 20% ownership within that organization. If you're a partnership or if you're an LLC with multiple managing partners, or if you're a corporation with multiple managing partners, you need to put anybody in there that has 20% ownership. And that's pretty customary when it comes to getting a business loan. They want to know who has an interest in this business, but more importantly, they want to know who can they go after to get their money if things start to happen. If the main owner can't pay it, then I'm going after this one, and then I'm going after that one, because they have 20% ownership. That's enough for them to go after it, because they're signing on that document to get that money as well in some cases. But that's why they ask for that. Okay. Any questions there? Did you see any questions about anything there, Miss Roxana?
Yes, she's asking in Spanish if she can use the money to buy an equipment or a machine that she needs for her business.
That's one of those that you have to consult the website, because I know a lot of times people, and what some people have done is gone and bought vehicles, but they bought their dream vehicle or something like that, and they frown upon that. But what I would do is I'd talk to the lender on that to make sure. If you're just getting a vehicle that is required to do that work, that might be something. But like I said, different lenders may tell you different things. So the lender that you're working with, make sure you consult that lender before you just say, boom, I'm going to go buy this vehicle.
But I think she's planning to buy something like equipment for the business itself. So
Well, we have that block that says other.
okay.
So we
Okay.
have that block that says other, and then they're going to have to explain it.
Ok, Jackie, so él está diciendo que, bueno, si es como algo como un vehículo o como algo más relacionado como transporte, si tienes que averiguar directamente con tu banco, si te lo dejarían hacer, pero ya le expliqué que es como algo más para maquinaria o equipos que necesites para tu negocio. Entonces estoy segura que sí lo puedes hacer desde que puedas soportar que es para tu negocio, y en la partecita donde dice Other, ahí puedes explicar que vas a comprar tal equipment o tal máquina para lo que vas a hacer para tu negocio. And there is another question over there. If you are a non-profit, there is no ownership, would you leave that section blank?
Even when I was on a call last week and that question came up, if you're a nonprofit, they're still going to want, you have to put other, and you're going to have to supply somebody's name that's in charge of that nonprofit. This is what all the lenders said that was on that call I was on last week. They have to have somebody on the hook for the money. So if you're a nonprofit, they still have to have a name in there. Yes. Hopefully that answered it. But there was, like I said, I was on a call with SBA and some bankers, and that was the way they answered that question. Okay. Now this one came out a little bit fuzzy. I don't know why. I use the same tool for all of them, but it gets into more detailed questions here. And we don't have to go through all of them, but I can tell you that if you answer yes to 1 and 2, the loan is not going to be approved. And it has something to do with whether you're a criminal, you've been arrested and charged with something, and or bankruptcy. So if you look at 1, it's talking about disbarment, it's talking about anything with bankruptcy. If you've involved in that, if you put yes there, they're not going to approve the loan. When it comes to other ones, if you've been delinquent by any SBA lending or anything like that in the last 7 years, if you became delinquent, then if you put yes, then they're not going to approve it there either. The other ones are pretty much business related. Did you get a EIDL? And it says, do you have any other management in any other businesses? If you do, you just have to put an addendum section A and then to list all the affiliates that you have. Okay. And then 5 and 6, once again, you go back to the ownership. Yeah, if anybody in that group was incarcerated or anything, or got in any kind of criminal arraignment and found guilty, if you say yes, you're not going to be approved. And you have to put your initials verifying that, okay, I'm filling this out. I got to put my initials in here saying that I've looked at this and that's my answer. Same thing for the number 6, if you pled guilty or nolo contendere when it comes to other types of felonies and things like that too. If you say yes, of course, you're not getting it. So you have to put your initial there as well. Place of residence has to be the United States. Do you have a franchise? You have to put yes in there if you own franchises. That was one of the things frowned upon in the first round, that some of the franchises, the bigger franchises in the United States that are looked at as small businesses, even though they have 10,000 employees, they got some of that money, and some of them turned it back in, but some of them used it. But that's so you can get your burgers and things like that. So I'm okay with it, I guess. Also, when you do this application, like I said, I told you it's a pretty simple application. When you do the application, you're going to have to certify you're the representative for the organization, and you're authorizing any kind of background, any kind of checks and reviews that come about. And there's quite a bit of info there. You need to read every one of those. and make sure you understand each one of those, because if you certify that you're saying yes to all of this, that I know this, I've read this, I understand this, I know the proceeds will be used for this, I know I can't, and they're even saying they want you to, if you can, for the most part, purchase American-made products and services. And so you're saying, yes, I'm going to do all that. And that's what you're certifying when you do that. So make sure you read every line, because that is important as well. And you got to go through and check the blocks in these as well. When it comes to good faith initials, you need your initials in each one of these certifications here. Okay. Same thing. They have detailed questions, what you're going to use the money for. And down there on the very close to the bottom, not to the last one, the one before the last one, it says not more than 25% will be forgiven for all non-payroll costs. That's up to 40% now. Remember, it's 60-40 now. It's 60% used for payroll and 40% used for other items, non-payroll costs. And I would imagine whenever Jackie was asking that question, that equipment that she's looking at would be one of those non-payroll costs if that lending institution approves that. So that would be one place to look for. Okay. And further certifications, this is when you're getting into the legal lease, and this is the part that most people don't want to read, but it's the most important, because it's the one that's telling you that if you perjure yourself here and you don't comply with this stuff, you can go to jail for up to 30 years and get $1 million fine. This is stuff gets serious here. So make sure you read your documents carefully and make sure the information that you're submitting to your lender and the SBA, because that's a federal program, make sure you're being as accurate as you can. This is why I say, if you can, seek professional advice to help put this thing together, because you want to do your best, and you don't want to go and have to wear orange for 30 years. Excuse me. And then you acknowledge that the lender, that you understand everything, and that you're going to share any kind of tax information that they ask for at the SBA level, at the lender level, whatever it might be. Then you have to sign it and print and put your title and date. And that's it for the actual application. The rest of it is just trying to put together the package, whatever the lender needs to show that you're in there. They don't supposed to charge you anything to put this thing together, but there's some documentation that you'll need to put together. Tax forms, you might need your ID, you might have to put a pictured ID up there, your driver's license or other form of ID, and like I said, tax forms. So this is the basic application, okay? And after you put this thing together and you upload it into the system, one would hope that everything goes through with no problems, but that's not always the case. So December 27th, they said, okay, this is when we started this. The legislation is approved. So you submit either form 2483 or 2483 SD. And then you have a validation process that's going to start after that. If you get a validation message, that's probably a good thing, but there's no money going to be expended until you get a loan number, and all the validation messages, whether it's negative, especially the negative ones, have to be cleared before they're going to release any money. And then there's these things called hold codes, and I'll show you what they are in a minute. There's 7, 8, and 9. They're hold codes. And then you'll have to submit more documentation with those, okay? One of the things you might see, it's called, when you're doing the second draw, it's called an unresolved borrower, okay? First draw, you got a first draw loan. Remember I was telling you before, it might say that you haven't made sure to take care of all the first draw issues that are out there. Well, in the second draw documentation, it doesn't say that has to be the case. So they're working on that hold code, okay? Also, there's that in that unresolved borrower, like I said, SBA issues the loan number. The loan then is considered approved, and then the funds are ready to go. And I said, like I said before, you're not going to get the money until all the issues are reserved or resolved. Okay. So it's incumbent upon you, if your lender tells you that there's a code that came up, then you need to try to get that issue taken care of as quickly as possible. And some of the codes, like I'm going to show you, have to do with documentation. So if you're missing a certain form, you'll need to get that form to them as quickly as you can so that you can keep that process moving forward. Stay in contact with your lender. And like I said before, today's the magic day. Magically today, all of these errors are supposed to be cleared up, but I still need to let you know what they are because they might not be cleared up for every lending source that's out there. We will see. Today's supposed to be the magic day though. All right, so you have this in there and you can say, hey, look, this is, you guys are telling us that it's supposed to be done. So when are we gonna get it? But be nice about it, please. And then we have these things called hold codes, right? And the lenders must upload your application into the system. And when they upload your application into the system, they might see these codes. All right. First draw, all the information and approvals and everything are not required to try to get the second draw. So just remember that part. But when the SBA determines that all issues are reserved, second draw applications will be automatically submitted to the next stage of the process, and you don't have to resubmit, and your lender doesn't have to resubmit. Just to submit it one time, and then they'll do whatever they can and work with you and your lender to try to clear all of those codes that might come up. Okay. And the first code that you might see is a hold code 7, and it has to do with the tax ID of the borrower, the principal, or whatever. So if you're a nonprofit, somebody asked something about nonprofit a few minutes ago. If you're a nonprofit and you don't submit a name for a principal individual that's in charge of the nonprofit, this might be one of the reasons you would see the hold code 7, because they need to see somebody in there because somebody needs to be held accountable for that money. And that's what they said on the call when I was on the call a few days ago, last week. And then you're gonna need proof of the correct tax identification number of whoever that individual is. You're gonna need a copy of the tax return, and in this case, 2019. You're gonna need the employment identification document, IRS EIN document, and that means that's the document that shows when you applied to become that nonprofit organization, you had to get an employment identification number so that they can identify you in the tax code. You have to show that document when they gave you that EIN. And then a copy of somebody's social security number or social security card that's in charge. That's what they're going to be looking for, okay? That's important. That's the only way you're going to clear code 7 is have all of this in place. And then we have code 8. Wow, they're going in sequence, right? Here you might have a mismatch with the entity name or the individual or the company, all right? So now you got to prove how you can link it all together. It's going to be with either the tax identification number, the employment identification number, or the social security number in the case of a sole proprietor or independent contractor or self-employed person. Well, you're going to need tax returns. You can do it. Your DBA documents when you filed for your DBA, if you're a DBA, your copy of your business license or your state registration, the individual's driver's license or your official ID of some type. And then once again, your social security card. These are different ways. The only way you're going to get that is whatever is missing out of this list, depending on who the lender is and working with the SBA, that whole code 8 is going to remain there until you clear this up, okay? And then we have the last one is the code 9. And this is when you have to prove. Remember yesterday I said that it was February. That date in February was escaping me. It's February 15th is the magic day. You have to prove that you were in business as of February 15th, 2020, okay? And it might say that you're not, that you were not in business at February 15th. Well, you got documents that can prove that as well. You have the Secretary of State filing if you're an LLC or or if you're what do you call it, a C Corp or S Corp, you got these filings that you had to do with the state, with Secretary of State. You also have where you go to the county office and do your DBA documents, that you take that to them as well. You will have either your 2019 or your 2020 tax returns. Right now, most people probably would have 19. You might not be finished with 2020 yet. You got bank statements. One of the requirements for opening up a business account is to have, for opening up some of these documents or getting this stuff approved at the state level, is to have a bank account, because they need to know where they're going to draw the money from if you forget to draw the money whenever it comes to your state tax or sales tax or whatever it might be, or federal taxes. They need to know where they can pull that money from, and this is how they find that out. You got to have a bank account. So you can have a bank statements that show that you were in business before February 15th, 2020. Okay. And then a business license. If you actually run a type business where you need a license, then you show that you had a business license to do that. And in my case, I ran a home health agency for 15 years, and I had to get a state license to do that. And in order to get that, I had to keep it hanging up in there. So I would just make a copy of that and send that to them if that's what they were requesting. And then you could have also some invoices that you paid on or after February 15th, 2020. But you have to satisfy all of these before that code 9 that they're looking for. You have to satisfy those before they'll allow that code to be removed, and then your process moves forward. Okay. Those are some of the error codes and messages that you might see whenever you're going through this application process. That might not be all of them, but these are the ones that the SBA saw important enough to talk about on some of the presentations that I've attended over the last few weeks. And I thought I'd share those with you. Well, once you put your application in, you get all those things cleared up. Let me stop right there. Are you any questions?
Yes, I have a question before you go to the next topic. I have a question from Bonnie. She's asking me, she's asking you, do you need to have the IRS EIN if you are a for-profit business?
If you are a for-profit business, the answer is yes. It depends on what type of business you are. You're for-profit. If you're a LLC, you got to have that IRS EIN information. If you're a sole proprietor, you're going to need it, either a tax identification or your social security number. You're going to need one of those whenever depending on how your business is set up. But you have to have some legal information, meaning identification, so that the government, when the federal government wants to come down to find out where you stand when it comes to taxes, you need to be able to show them, hey, my EIN is here. This is all the money I've made off it over the last 6 months. Or, well, I went in business in June. This is just an example. It has nothing to do with PPP. Well, I went in business in June, but I didn't do any work until like this January. So you want to file a zero tax claim because you didn't do any business. And that would be your proof. You got your EIN. I got my EIN in June. I got my bank statement showing that there's been no activity on that. So I'd make that a copy of it, and I'd send that to the people at the IRS or the tax people here at the county, and they could let you file a zero tax return because you have no activity on that employment identification number, or on your social security number, or on your tax identification number. I've actually had to do that. So that process is pretty simple. But the answer is yes. If you're in business, you need to show that you have a tax ID or employment identification number or your social security number.
Yeah, and what about if she doesn't have the original document that the IRS sent? She just has the number, the EIN number, but not the original document.
If they're asking you for the document, just go back to the IRS and request the document.
Okay.
You have to go back to the IRS and request that document. They should be able to produce a copy of it.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so when do you apply for loan forgiveness? Okay. Well, you have, after you've drawn all the funds that you need for your business, and now the coverage period is over, you got 10 months. to apply for it. So if it comes to the end of that 10 months and you haven't requested any kind of loan forgiveness, then they're going to expect you to start making payments. So it's incumbent upon you to pay attention to when you got the actual draw, the clock starts when you get your first draw. In some cases, make sure sit down with your lenders though to make sure. They might say, well, when we approve it, that's when you do. So make sure you sit down with them to determine if it's when you approve the loan, or is it when I get my first draw. So make sure with your lenders. This is why it's important to sit down with them to clarify all that stuff. Okay, but then the clock starts running and you got 10 months. Don't wait till 9 months and 28 days to do it, because you might mess around and forget. so go ahead and get that done. Okay. What do you do when you're going to apply for this thing? Well, for one, you're going to contact your lender and you're going to complete the right form. Remember, there are different forms. There's 3 different forms. There's a 3508, the 3508EZ, and the 3508S. Now, some of the lenders might have a document that is pretty equal to those documents, but they're not titled the same thing. So just depending on who you're working with, they'll tell you which one that they want you to use. This is why it's important to stay in contact with your lenders. Stay in contact with them, be constantly talking to them. The 3508 EZ and the S are shortened versions. So that might work out better for you depending on your type business. Then as you're putting that, you're starting to work with the banker to start putting together the loan forgiveness package, start assembling all your data. And what I would do is I'm old school, I just create folders. And I would have one titled PPP loan forgiveness. And every document that I do has anything to do with PPP will be in there. I know I'm going to need to produce a copy of my ID probably. I know I'm going to need a copy of my taxes. I'm going to have it in there. I know I'm probably going to need my payroll. So each month that I would do payroll, I would make a copy of my payroll that I did and put it in there. I'd have every bit of it in that folder. That way, when it comes time to compile the documentation, it's all put together. All I have to do is go to the bank and sit down with the lender and say, okay, Mr. Banker, here's my information. Here's everything you're going to need to get this loan forgiveness application approved. Which document do you want me to put in? And when they tell you that, then you start working with them to get that in. If it has to do with payroll, and remember, it's 60% of it must have to do with payroll. So you're going to need your bank statements. You're going to need your tax forms. You're going to need any kind of payment receipts that you had to do. Cancel checks where you had to pay for certain things that had to do with payroll. Like if you use a payroll company, you would want to prove to them that you paid a payroll company to do your payroll for the last 6 months, whatever it was. And then any other thing that comes to bank account statements, health insurance for your employees, retirement plans for your employees that are benefits for them for working with you. You want to make sure to have copies of all of that. And like I said, I'm one of those that was old school. All of that info, a copy of it would be in my folder titled PPP Loan Forgiveness 2020. Okay. Then if it's non-payroll, and here we're looking for at least 40% of that money to be used in a non-payroll proposition, like your mortgage interest, your business rent, any kind of lease agreements that you might have. I would have copies of my lease agreement in there. And that's another, like I said, I'm old school. Some people call me a pack rat. You can call me what you want. But when it comes time to documentation, I have all my documentation right there. And I don't have to go scurrying around all over. Where's this document? Oh my God, where's this document? I don't have to go through all that stuff because I'm a pack rat, it's all together. That's just the way I do business. Always did. My utility payments, I want that included in there as well. Okay. This list is not all inclusive. So if there's some other things that you might be paying for that might be non-payroll, include that. Talk to your banker to find out if can I use this too. Talk to the lender and they'll run it by the SBA. They're not going to leave them hanging. They'll run it by the SBA. They might not even make the determination on their own as a lender. They're going to probably run it up to the SBA and say, hey, this is not on the list, but they're saying they paid for this during that process. It's a non-payroll issue. Is that legal? And they'll allow them to do that, and then they'll determine, okay. Then you submit all that information and follow up with your lenders. Continue to communicate throughout the process. If there seems to be something where there's some questions, they need to do a review, then the lender will keep you advised on what's going on with it, working with the SBA, and when it's completed, they'll get you taken care of from there. Okay. These are your forms. I told you again, your 3508, your EZ, and your S. Those are your forms that you'll need to apply for loan forgiveness. And then if something happens and you might think you might need an appeal because you didn't get it, you're going to request a review of all that information at the SBA level, and the SBA can, at their discretion, they can review it or not based on what they're looking at. They might say, well, it's not going to meet the requirements, so we're not even going to take a look at anything else. But that's up to the SBA. So make sure you get it in on time. Seek SBA guidance at their website. Seek the Federal Register, number 85. Thursday, August 27th is the one you can use to find all kinds of information. That same stuff that's on the IFR and the CFRs and all that stuff. That's pretty much what you have to do. Well, now what do you need to do as a business owner? Speak with your lenders, your bankers, your SBA people. Look at the lender list on the SBA.gov if you want to get the first draw or the second draw. Seek assistance from your community leaders like myself, Roxana, Cesar, and SBDC, and SCORE personnel that might be comfortable dealing with these type issues. And for me, this is all I had to present to you for today. And I was glad I was able to answer some of the questions as we go along. And hopefully it's been informative to you. If you need a copy of this presentation, or if you were not here yesterday, you'll have both of them because I included part 2 on the tail end of part 1. So you'll be able to get both of them. And you can just request that through either Cesar or Roxana, and they'll make sure you get it. But I want to say at this time, thank you very much for having me here today to help you out with this presentation. Cesar, thank you very much. Roxana, Luis, thank you for the support. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here on the chat. Honestly, thank you so much for the presentation that you did today, because this type of technical assistance is actually the information that people are looking for. And I know many of the advising people, they don't have the time to explain these like little details that actually matter. And I want to highlight, and one of my suggestions today is you need to have in mind to have your documentation ready, trying to read this entire presentation again, the part where Hal mentioned the documentation, trying to understand the type of business that you have and trying to categorize the type of documentation that you need to put together. This is a very important key when you are doing the application or the process of application. And also, I really recommend to fill out the form very well, because sometimes if you don't fill out that form, you are going to get denied. So make sure you have the form very well filled out and the documentation to support that you actually need that money. That's my recommendation today.
Very good.
I have a couple of questions, so let me see, because they are like typing very fast now. I have a question from Angela. I say, if I establish my business as a sole proprietor and then I change to LLC after February 15, 2020, but it's essentially the same business, should I apply with my former sole proprietorship or my current LLC company?
Whoa, boy, that is an exceptional question. Woo!
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will tell you how the IRS personnel look at it. When you were a sole proprietor, you were one business. And then if you moved to an LLC on February the 14th, And that was approved
You say after the February 15th.
after the 15th?
Yeah.
Okay, so on February 16th, you decided to become a LLC. You're a completely different business. But, and that's the way the IRS looks at it. But from a technical standpoint, just thinking about it here today, if you can show you were in business as that LLC after, well, oh no, because you said they say you have to be in business on February 15th. So you're going to need, this is what I'm saying, that these things are so technical and I can't answer every question. This is one of those that the SBA going to take a look at and they'll have to make the determination on it, because the way the document is written, you must prove that you were a business entity by February 15th of 2020. So the way they look at it, you're a new business February 16th. You're a new business and you were not in business on the 15th. And they may say you don't qualify. But I'm not saying 100% that they will, but I'm just thinking about it, looking at the way IRS tax code is written, because I've had to deal with that too, and the way a banker looks at it. They look at it as you're two different businesses, even though you're the same person running the same operation. You just titled it different, a different entity to do business to give you a better tax break. I had to go through that with insurances when I was running my home health agency. I changed from a partnership to an LLC for tax purposes. And what they did to me, they made me pretty much start all the way over and had to make applications to all of the insurances all over again to be able to service those clients, because I was a completely different business. So that's one that you're going to have to take to the SBA and your lender. That's oh my God, that's a very good question. And I don't know how they're going to look at that one, because technically, as that new entity, you were not in business on February 15th from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. It's a very good question. I would apply as a sole proprietorship, because that actually proved that I was before everything started and before the dates that they are actually putting over there. But I'm pretty sure, Hal, we will get more information tomorrow about that question. I'm pretty sure.
I do have some more training today, so that's a good question that I might submit. Hey, check this one out.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And also, Bonnie is asking, I already answered the question in the chat, but I just want to make sure that you provide us that answer as well. Bonnie is asking if there is, if do you know if the EIDL will be offered as well this year? So
that's another one of those good questions. And so far, they haven't, on any of the calls that SBA's discussed, they haven't mentioned anything about EIDL, except that they're no longer going to penalize the organizations for that up to $10,000 they received. They're not going to take that off the top of their loan if you're applying for $80,000, you're not going to get $70,000 because you got the $10,000 first draft, because that was like a grant. So they didn't see why they were doing that anyway. Why were we doing that anyway? It was a grant, so why are we doing that? Okay. So the answer is, I haven't heard anything about another round for EIDL. That's another question that I'll listen for today. If I don't see it, I'll submit it in chat myself. But that's another good question.
For my understanding, Hal, is not the EIDL open until December 31st?
Well, what they did, they had it open all the way to December 31st of this year, of last year. They extended it out all the way to 2021 as well. But as far as more funding into it, I don't know how they're going to do that. If you received it before, I don't know if they're going to allow you to get any more or anything like that. But EIDL, they did extend it out all the way until December 31st, 2021.
Okay.
And I know that's for people that have not received any EIDL at this point.
Yeah, and she's asking if we are going to provide some seminars about EIDL.
Well, if it depends on Cesar, if he wants us to do that, maybe we can get that on the calendar.
Yeah, we probably will work on that. It's a very good topic as well.
Okay.
I have another question from Jackie, and she's asking me, she's asking you, I'm sorry, what is the like how much is going to be this type of, like what is the gap of this type of loans? Like what is the maximum money?
Well, the maximum that they're doing right now is $2 million for EID. I mean, I'm sorry, for PPP. The maximum on this round is $2 million is what I've seen in all the guidance.
Okay, so
And
Jackie,
usually anything that's less than 150,000 goes through much quicker than if you're trying to get $500,000. It might take 4 to 6 weeks to get that $500,000, but it might go through in 2 weeks if you're trying to get $150,000.
ya, Jackie dice que el tamaño máximo, lo que están dando máximo son casi 2 millones de dólares y lo mínimo hasta pueden ser $500, $1,000. Es dependiendo. Yo creo que ellos se basan en el tipo de negocio y el tipo de, digamos, de gastos, o si digamos un negocio que bajó, digamos, importantemente sus ventas, ellos miran exactamente en qué categoría, digamos, podrías tú digamos, estar, y dependiendo a eso es en lo que se basan y te dan el dinero. Pero eso es lo máximo según lo que nos está diciendo y compartiendo aquí Hal. También Bonnie is saying, thank you, this is a great seminar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that. And I think we don't have any more questions. David is asking if we are going to send a copy of these presentations. Yes, we actually did it yesterday from the presentation that Hal did it, and with the questions, the frequently questions, we send that information. We are going to do the same today. And just a reminder, we are going to have, Cesar, you can explain that part, that you are going to have a platform where everything is going to be there. So
yes, so if you missed the presentations yesterday or today, or you maybe came in late because you were a little busy at the office, you can find it on our Facebook page, MileOne. And also we will be developing a platform, a landing page with all our webinars and presentations and seminars that we'll be doing for 2021. Once we finish this series tomorrow, we'll be creating that landing page, and we'll be posting that up there as well on all our social media platforms. And we'll also be putting it on our network email list that we send out to all our small businesses and entrepreneurs. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Halbert, Rosana, once again, excellent information, a great deep dive into the application process, and really just the information and knowledge that you need to know, because I'm sure it is quite intimidating walking into a bank and asking for assistance and talking to your banker and or to your accountant and trying to get the assistance that you're needing to be able to maintain your business through this pandemic. So thank you once again. I want to remind everyone that we will be finishing tomorrow with our third session. We'll be talking a little bit about taxation and credit. We will have Mr. Flavio Lopez from Triunfante and Associates, which is one of our incubators. He's a tax professional that we'll be talking a little bit about your 2020 taxes and how it will or will not affect you. So please join us. Once again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe, and don't forget, you are not alone. Seek out assistance from MileOne, SBDC, from the MBDA, or anyone else that is providing resources at this point. Have a wonderful afternoon. Take care and be safe.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, and I just want to, before we cut off, please join us tomorrow, because after you receive this money, you need to understand how you need to report this money. How is the tax part? So please join us tomorrow, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, Hal. You did an amazing job today again. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys later. Take care.